Okay, we are now live on YouTube. The meeting is yours.
Thank you so much, Ms. Fakish. Good evening, everyone. We will now call the meeting to order at 5:32 p.m. and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag, to the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, in liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mary?
Yes. Do you need the agenda?
No, I can't see myself on the screen, so I don't know if I'm on or not.
You're fine. We can see you. You're fine. So if you just want to go ahead through the agenda.
Yeah, but I would like to be able to see that I know that I'm on. I'm not seeing a lot of people, so I don't know if something's going on, but I'll ask for approval of the minutes from a committee member.
So, excuse me, Dr. Lewis Campbell, I think we have to hold on the approval of the minutes until Dr. G joins, just for numbers' sake. So if we want to circle back to that, if I'm happy to move into the first informational item.
That will work. Thank you so much, Waters.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everybody, and happy summer, almost summer. Feels like summer for those in a school district, except for the admin who work all year long. All right, so the first item that's informational is one that is super, super exciting. We are very fortunate to have some really incredible students in our school district, and one of whom is our ECI committee student rep for this committee. And tonight we want to honor her because she received an award that is just amazing. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Ty Gross, who is an assistant principal for a couple more days at our high school. And he works very closely with this young lady. And he would like to do the honors of talking about this really incredible achievement. And I also want to just say to her, I'm so proud of you. She's a former student of mine in elementary school and just has been a pleasure to watch you grow into a beautiful young lady. So, Mr. Gross, take it away.
Hi, everybody, and thank you, Dr. Waters, for that wonderful introduction. I guess, as Dr. Waters said, my name is Ty Gross. I will be with you all a little bit while longer as assistant principal at the high school. I wanted to talk to you guys about the Bezos Scholarship Award. This year, out of 1,200 applicants, our own Jordanos Lemma has received the scholarship award. The scholarship program is a year-long, no-cost leadership program that amplifies youth voice, collaboration, and action among young people to make a difference in their school environments. Students, scholars such as Jordanos receive leadership training, they receive free college advising, and they also receive grant money with over $1,000 to work on a community change project. Jordanos is going to be tackling disproportionality this year by working with our middle school scholars to explain the different pathways and prerequisites to APs, honors classes, so that they are able to take advantage of those things when they get to the high school. She will also be going to Aspen for the Aspen's Ideas Festival to learn more about taking her advocacy work to the next level. I'd like everyone to just congratulate her on such an amazing achievement. Again, out of many, many applicants across the nation and Africa, she was chosen to be one of only 17 young scholars to be able to participate in this program, all free of charge. So next school year, when her change project begins to get on its feet, I really hope that you all gather around her to support her to make sure that we can see this through. Thank you all for your time, and congratulations, Jordanos. We're extremely proud of you.
Congrats,
Thank you.
Jordanos. We're so proud of you.
Congratulations.
So
Yes.
proud. And I do want to acknowledge, I know she's not on our panel tonight, but she is watching, Miss Carmina Taylor, who has been a really integral part of this journey with Jordanos. I just want to give her a shout out. And I also want to thank Mr. Ty Gross. He has really taken on the student ambassador group up at the high school while he's been with us. And he's been a wonderful liaison, point person, facilitator. He will tell you that the students do the work. They are the ones who come up with these brilliant ideas, but he helps them execute them. And he works in collaboration with Ms. Taylor and other school districts so that our students can partner with their peers in Montgomery County to really come up with some wonderful things to do at our high schools to make us better. So again, Jordanos, congratulations. We're so proud of you. We can't wait to hear about this. And Mr. Gross, it's been just a joy to work with you. Thank you for everything you've done for North Penn, and we wish you the very best in Abington School District. They're very lucky to have you. Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Waters, I'd like to also echo that on behalf of the board to thank Jordanos for all of her hard work. She's been an excellent student representative on the committees that she has served on, and we appreciate her knowledge and sharing what it is the students want, as she is the voice of the students in many situations. And we will be here to support you even through next year. And Ty, yes, we're going to miss you. So sorry to see you go, but it's a next chapter in your life, and you have been wonderful in working with you. I've been at some of those meetings and worked with you and watched you as you work with the student ambassadors. Thank you for your service.
All right. All right. And Dr. Lewis Campbell, if it's okay, we'll roll into the next item. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague and friend, Dr. Pam Hart, and then she will be presenting with Mr. Nicholson. So Pam, take it away.
Thank you so much, Dr. Waters. Good evening, everyone. It's always a pleasure to be here with you on a Tuesday evening. Last month, a small group of members of the curriculum team had an opportunity to present some information regarding authentic assessment. We are back to do a short presentation just to kind of build on the initial information that we shared. We will share some information this evening, and then we will have some more detailed information about where we are in authentic assessment in August and September when the school year begins. We wanted to use this opportunity to provide a little bit more of a kind of a conceptual framework of the ways in which we're thinking about authentic assessment, some of our current goals, and some next steps, just to kind of keep that conversation and that dialogue going. So Mary, if you don't mind pulling up that presentation, Mr. Nicholson's going to start the presentation and I'm going to wrap it up.
All right, thank you, Dr. Hart. I appreciate the setup there and the intro. And just as exciting as the first presentation, we're going to talk about assessment this evening. But no, congratulations, Jordanos. Very excited for you. Having gotten to know you over the last couple of years. So congratulations again. So we're going to talk, as Dr. Hart said, about authentic assessment. But to do so, Mary, if you could go to the next slide. It's really incumbent upon us to set the stage for those that are watching this tonight that may not know what authentic assessment is or what assessment in general is and why it's there. Kind of rewind, take a step back to go forward as to the purpose of all this. So assessment, for many of us, all you think of is a paper and pencil test. You think of a multiple choice or true false, and you look at a way to test someone's knowledge. In reality, the rationale for assessment is to collect, review, use information for the purpose of planning student learning. So planning what students know, understanding, engaging what students know and what they can do to make informed decisions about what we do next, what trends are happening, and how we make sure that we're teaching our students the pieces that they don't know, so we can move forward and get to all the pieces that they do need to know in each of our courses. Next slide, please. So to do that, there are two different types of assessment. The first is formative and the second summative. So formative is ongoing feedback. This could be something that's a quick thumbs up, thumbs down in class to make sure that students are understanding of what it is that we're doing, to make sure they're not, as some people say, lost in the sauce during the lesson plan for the day. Or it could be a little bit more formalized in that throughout the course, and it's really used to plan learning. And then finally, summative assessment is, that student learning at the end of the instructional unit to make sure they've got it, right? Make sure that they have the benchmarks, that they have the standards, that the eligible content that we need them to know has been gleaned by the students and they understand it and can apply that learning as part of the process of moving on to the next concept. Next slide, please. So that brings back authentic assessment and the rationale for that. So authentic assessment could be formative, could be summative, but it's really taking real world context and adding that and layering that on top of what we want students to be able to know and do. So evaluation of their knowledge, of their skills and their abilities in a real world context where they need to apply the learning, go beyond regurgitating and actually apply the learning to what it is that we're asking them to do. Unlike normal assessment where we're just bubbling in letters, we're doing true and false, or we're maybe doing some writing, authentic assessment really helps us make sure students understand, but also can demonstrate that understanding through meaningful and relevant tasks. If you think about applying math to building a building, you need to know the geometry so you can build a building. And we're through authentic assessment, we really want to make sure students understand, but then can apply that understanding in a real world task that goes beyond the just regurgitating and the memorization of facts. Next slide, please. And the reason for that is simple. There are multiple reasons, but as Hanover Research, who we partner with on some tasks throughout the year, and we glean a lot of the research that they've done in the field of education. The main reasons that we want to make sure that we are using authentic assessment with students and going beyond the multiple choice test and the regurgitating of facts is because it makes those facts and it makes that learning relevant to students. And because it's relevant, it increases engagement, right? It takes students from beyond memorizing something and filling in a blank to really taking that learning, engaging in the learning in many ways in a more personalized or an individualized way, where they can express their learning in a student-centered way, and in many cases a way that's more creative and collaborative than what we have seen traditionally in education. So if we think about all of us that are listening or watching tonight, and you think about your workflow during the day, with whatever career you have or whatever job you have, how many times are you given a paper and pencil test? And then how many times are you working collaboratively with a team to create, to apply different pieces of research, different pieces of knowledge to a task or to a project to demonstrate and to make things better in your own work world? So that's what authentic assessment is. That's why we think authentic assessment is so important, because it really takes a student-centered approach to learning. And it's not something simple or something easy, but it actually takes the students and makes sure they understand the information and know what they need to know and can do what they need to do by demonstrating that in a real world situation. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Dr. Hart, who will kind of talk about our plans for the upcoming school year.
Thank you so much. I wanted to just take a moment or two to situate authentic assessment in the framework for culturally responsive instruction that we've been using for the past couple of years to really guide our cultural proficiency, equity, and inclusive work. We've highlighted the three areas that authentic assessment really does align itself with. The idea of reshaping curriculum, piggybacking on what Mr. Nicholson shared regarding active and student-centered instruction, and then also this idea of teacher shifting from the kind of the sage, kind of in the front of the room to really being the facilitator as well. And so this really does highlight, I think from my perspective, our ongoing commitment to culturally responsive instruction and the tie that authentic assessment has as part of that as well. So next slide, please. So kind of our ongoing goals. We want to make sure that we're re-engaging our learners. We want to make sure that they're experiencing a variety of assessment measures as they're engaging in various courses as well. We recognize that for some students, that idea of that paper pencil test works really well for them, for some not so well. And we want to think about like a portfolio of opportunities that students have to really get a very good sense of skills, knowledge, and content that we want for them to be able to know as they kind of move through a course and then ultimately at the very end as well. Part of our goal around authentic assessment is really creating sort of an instructional shift for how our staff members kind of view assessment as well. And I think that's part of a lot of what Mr. Nicholson talked about too. And we want for students to have particular skills, we want them to know particular content, but this idea of kind of the why and how do we make sure that students really know or able to do information beyond, hello? What just happened?
Dr. Hart, we still hear you.
Okay, so maybe we don't know, or we don't hear her anymore. So I will take the opportunity to jump in here, and I apologize, but let me just re-engage us all here as we try and re-engage our learners. So we're trying to create that instructional shift for how our teachers view assessment, and then be responsive to growing AI technology. You know, we know that technology out there really allows students to Google or use the various AI pieces to answer simple questions. When we go to authentic assessment, we go beyond that and we make sure that students are applying the knowledge, not just, as I said before, regurgitating knowledge that they can find on the internet. So let's go to that next slide.
And I think, Mr. Nicholson, I see Dr. Hart is back, so I think she's
back?
good.
For what just happened there, but thank you for picking up the ball and running with it. That was
It's good
great.
to see your face back in the place, Dr. Hart.
All right, sorry. Thank you all for being so flexible. So our expectations for teachers as we move into the 23-24 school year, that at the minimum, every student will have at least one authentic assessment, summative assessment, that replaces a traditional test or assessment in each of the courses they have each semester. So if you have a student that has 5 classes in a particular semester, they will have at least one, could definitely have more than one authentic assessment in each one of those classes for the first semester, and then again in the second semester as well. And we understand our role as a administrative team, and particularly a curriculum team, to really be able to support teachers and departments in reaching this goal. And so in the next slide, I'm going to highlight a little bit of the professional development that will be allocated for teachers to be able to work on authentic assessment, developing authentic assessment, learning more about really good exemplars of what those assessments look like, and then also having time to get some feedback so that we can continue to refine and improve the work as well. We have a really nice kind of pool of authentic assessment now in various content areas. We're going to spend time this summer actually reviewing those, providing feedback, strengthening the samples that we have, and then giving people opportunity to continue to develop authentic assessment as we're moving through the summer throughout the year as well. So if you'll just turn to the following slide, we wanted to provide a little bit of an overview of the ways in which we'll be using our professional development time this year to allocate for our high school teachers to be able to take a deeper dive into authentic assessment and really be able to create assessment as we're moving through the year. And so you can kind of get a general sense in this calendar, but we are allocating curriculum time in the very beginning beginning of the year to really set some expectations, provide some additional information. We recognize that every year we have new teachers that are joining the high school. People might be shifting classes for the first time, and we want to make sure that everyone is beginning the year with very similar expectations and the information needed to really develop those assessments if necessary. And time will be allocated as well in the beginning of the year. You will see that our cultural proficiency, equity, and inclusion professional development sessions will provide a continual opportunity for teams to collaborate, to refine their practices, to actually look at assessments that have been administered, get feedback from students, and then continue to refine that as well. And one of the things I want to make sure that I share is if we go back to the framework that I talked about a little while ago, the idea is that authentic assessment really does meet the need of a wide range of students, gives students, I think, a variety of opportunities to demonstrate their knowledge in ways that we may not have traditionally done that, which we do think will really tap into not just student engagement, but really address some of the disproportionality that we've seen as well. And so we do see that our cultural proficiency and equity time is a really appropriate time to be developing that assessment as well. So through our cultural proficiency and equity early dismissals that you see there on the calendar, and then the curriculum time that we have allocated for the days right leading up to Thanksgiving, and then again in April as well. So our hope is that that ongoing opportunity to develop, to try it, to get some feedback, and then to refine. We think by the end of next year, we'll have an incredible number of assessments, and that people will feel really good about what they've created, and then also feel really good about the process that they've gone through as well. So the next slide, I think, is just for questions. So we hope that for the members of the committee, you see that we're continuing to take a deep dive into really philosophically where we are around authentic assessment and what our initial plans are as we're moving forward. And for those of you in the community who may not be as familiar with authentic assessment, hopefully you have a better sense of where, how we frame it, kind of our why, and what our goals are for our students. And so at this time, I'd be very happy to entertain any questions.
I'll make just a quick note. As an educator myself, it's so important for us to see examples of what authentic assessment is. So many of us went to college and learned how to be teachers without this idea in place. And while creatively we may have come up with something that does fit this category, so many of us are just not ready to make that kind of a larger change. And I want to applaud Dr. Hart and everyone here in making that change a lot easier for older educators like myself. I was wondering if we were varying our expectations by department at all, or if that's kind of already in the framework shown here by allowing a little bit of a transition time as we go.
So that's actually a conversation that we just had yesterday. I mean, the idea is that we want for there to be the floor is that there be one example of authentic assessment in every course. We know that some courses lend themselves to authentic assessment a little bit more than others. And so we know there might be some variation and variability, but we do think that it's really important that regardless of the course that you're taking, that you have, I guess 2 examples in a year. If you're taking a year-long course, that you're able to demonstrate your knowledge, in this way.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you so much.
Sure. Any other questions or thoughts or feedback?
I appreciate the outline of everything, the work that's being done. It's clearly a work in progress, and I think just the commitment from teachers and administration to continue that work, right? We're always on this journey of growth where we can find opportunities and additional pathways for our students to show and apply their learning, because what we now know, research tells us, is that students need to be able to apply their learning time and time again. So I'm grateful and very interested in hearing more about some of those examples as Mr. McBain described. I think it would be great for the committee, board members, and the community to of see what some of those examples, I know they're going to be working on them through the summer.
Yeah.
So, but I think it would be good for, us all to kind of see that work as it moves forward.
Yeah. So we shared a couple of those examples in the May presentation. I think we'll have even more to share as we're moving forward. So if you just want to take a look at those, feel free, and then we'll be able to share additional examples as we're moving forward. I think in the fall, and then as the year progresses, we'll be able to even show more as people have more time to develop them as well.
And what you mentioned was you're thinking if it's a year-long course, there would be one in the fall and one in the spring that would be offered to students.
Yes.
And then if it's a half-year course, there would just be one offered to the students at the least.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Any questions from our student panelists? Okay. All right, it looks like we can move forward.
All right, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hart.
Nicholson, thank you for joining me for that presentation. I appreciate it tremendously.
Thank you.
Dr.
right.
Waters, I am going to need your help moving forward.
Sure,
in the
Dr. G.
agenda, just
No problem, Dr. G. The next presentation, I'm actually going to turn it back to Dr. Hart. We have our learning coaches with us, and we're really fortunate to have the coaches that we do. They do an outstanding job every day. There's so much that we learn from them, and tonight they're actually here to showcase some of the work that they've done over the year. So I'm going to throw it back to you, Dr. Hart, in case you want to open or give any additional introductions.
All right, great. All right, hold on. I'm having a lot of tech issues tonight. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, do you need me to jump in?
Yeah, no, I'm good. I wasn't sure I was there. Okay, great. So Mary, if you want to just start the slides. I am really delighted to have an opportunity to be able to share some of the work that our coaches have engaged in this year. As I reflect on the presentations that have taken place over the past year, we've talked about courses that we're offering, professional development, program of studies, and I realize that the backbone of so much of the work that we talk about in this meeting is really the work of our learning coaches. They really are, they play a really, really important role in our work, and I feel sometimes that they're unsung heroes, and I feel really fortunate to have an opportunity to kind of showcase some of the work that has been done this year. So next slide, please. So in the short time that we have together, there are a couple things that we hope to accomplish. One, talk a little bit about our structure and our focus. And then we have 4 areas that are going to do really brief presentations around technology integration, social emotional learning, early literacy, math, and then I want to talk a little bit about next steps for next year as well. So next slide, please. So as members of the committee, I know that you have a really good sense of what learning coaches are and what the goal of their work is, as we recognize that there are community members who may not necessarily be as familiar. I just wanted to start to kind of ground us in this idea that learning coaches are really those folks who are there to really support teachers, improve student learning by really increasing teachers' capacity and their instructional practices. And our learning coaches, like many, wear many, many different hats. So next slide, please. So very often we think of a coach will just kind of go in and work with an individual teacher, and that is true. But you can see from this graphic that they do play very, very a robust role, from instructional specialists to someone who's analyzing data, giving people feedback based on that data as well. They're their own learners, and they are really, I think, the catalyst for change and really enhancing the experiences that our students have. And you see a couple of those other roles and responsibilities as well. So I've been really so impressed with our team, because when we get together monthly, we talk about these many roles that they play. And sometimes one may take precedent over the other, but all of them are important contributions to the work that they engage in. Next slide, please. So we are fortunate, as Dr. Waters said, that we actually have 12 learning coaches, and they provide a variety of roles and responsibilities. And you can kind of look through that list there. Andrea Bowers actually presented earlier this year around our ELD program and the support that we're providing for staff members and for families. You will see that we have 3 literacy coaches, 2 math coaches, 2 technology integration coaches, 2 social emotional learning coaches, and 1 K-12 inclusive practice coach as well. The folks that are in bold, I've actually invited this evening to be able to talk a little bit about the work that they have engaged in this year. And so Marisa Neeson is going to talk a little bit about our kindergarten think tank and the work that she's been doing around early literacy. And she's invited kindergarten teacher Omni White from Nash Elementary to talk with her as well. Ron Martiello and Rebecca Russo are going to talk about their work. And then Mike Badai, and I'm not sure I saw Wendy, but hopefully Wendy will join us to talk about the important work they've done as well. And then Christy Johnson will talk a little bit about her work. It is a snippet of a tremendous amount of work. We would never be able to capture all that they've done, but I do think it's important to kind of get a good sense of the breadth and depth of the work that they've engaged in this year. Each one has set very specific goals in the beginning of the year and has spent time kind of reaching those goals by working with teachers and monitoring progress throughout the year and setting goals for next year as well. So I want to give them an opportunity to kind of talk a little bit about that work. So I'm going to turn the slide over to Mike Bada.
Thank you, Dr. Hart. As Dr. Hart mentioned, I'm Mike Badai. I'm the secondary ed tech learning coach. And this evening I'm presenting on behalf of my elementary counterpart, Wendy Stover. I'd like to begin by thanking members of the ECI committee and the school board for your continued support of all our instructional coaches. I've been fortunate to serve as an instructional coach for the past 7 years, and it's been an honor to serve the North Penn teachers, staff, and students in this capacity. Next slide, please, Mary. For the 2022-23 school year, our overarching goal was to support teachers as they use tech tools to create and maintain equitable and blended learning environments through providing resources, supporting instruction, and facilitating learning. And one of the things that my colleague and I did is we developed a teaching and learning rubric which aligned 9 sub-goals to the SAMR model in an effort to increase teacher and student efficacy of technology integration in the classroom. This rubric was built on the power of yet, so that staff members who haven't yet explored aspects of the rubric were encouraged to increase their understanding and use of our powerful engagement tools, with the ultimate goal of shifting the use of these tools from teachers using them to empowering our students to leverage technology in more meaningful ways to provide them with creative outlets to showcase their knowledge and understanding while increasing student engagement in the classroom. Next slide. So at the beginning of the year and the end of the year, we did a survey, and in that survey, as I mentioned, we aligned 8 instructional goals to the SAMR model. So anything in the red is where teachers are not yet doing that particular aspect of the goal. So in this one, you can see our equitable access to technology resources, where we're at the foundational level. We have teachers that are utilizing a projector, the TV camera, USB camera, screencast for direct instruction, where our ultimate goal is to provide students with opportunities to be self-advocates for selecting their own instructional resources or learning methods. And they're mindful in providing other students with equitable access to those resources. So this data does show our elementary and secondary combined. We definitely saw a greater increase in student self-advocacy at our secondary level, which could be contributed to developmentally appropriate tasks. However, we look forward to continuing to develop the ability of our younger students to do the same next year with support from our elementary teachers. Next slide, please. This graph here will show you that we definitely saw an increase of productivity tools. So teachers utilizing Canva, Google Docs, Wixie, Adobe, Seesaw, where you really want to see a shift away from the red of our teachers not utilizing these resources, and the yellow, those teachers are utilizing them to create things for themselves. And ultimately, when you move towards the blue and green, where you're increasing feedback that's given to students using these tools, and students ultimately creating their own resources using these tools, which will really complement the authentic assessment that Mr. Nicholson and Dr. Hart talked about at the high school. My last data slide, please. Our use of assessment tools. So we're ultimately looking for students and teachers to be using some fun tools like GimKit or Blukit, as well as utilizing Google Forms and Kahoot for some assessments, which could be formative assessments for the classroom, but students could also be creating those types of artifacts for some summative assessments as well. Some celebrations. My colleague and I participated this year in several professional growth opportunities. Next slide, please. That included Next Generation Teacher, which was a workshop to learn more about technology resources and strategies to improve technology integration with instruction. In addition, we have been immersed in all things AI. So we participated in an AI for Educators book study. So we read a book, and we also participated in a 4-week webinar course to learn more about AI and its implications in education. In addition, we provided several opportunities for outreach with our students in seeking ways to introduce tools like WeVideo, which is a powerful video creation tool for our middle school students and high school students, as well as Wixie to our elementary students. One other thing I wanted to highlight, we were also invited to present to our 5th grade students at Inglewood Elementary during their STEAM day, in which we presented some engaging information about AI and other tech tools that are currently impacting education. As part of our outreach, my colleague and I put together a monthly newsletter. It's an interactive newsletter, so it is on-demand PD, and in which we highlight our instructional tools, which are aligned to our teaching and learning rubric. That includes, tools and resources that will help teachers provide more equitable access to content, in which we highlight in our Techquity section, in addition to techs and tips or tech to try. Next slide, please. Some barriers that we've faced, definitely completion of the goal self-assessment rubric. Timing was a little bit of a challenge at the end of the year. And another thing that we struggle with is, as a whole, is just getting all of our staff members to look at ed tech as more of a powerful tool instead of an extra tool to really increase and accelerate student achievement. So to address that goal, in my last slide, we are going to be thinking about ways that admin and students and our staff all complete the tech goal rubric to self-assess where they are, ultimately to hopefully increase our staff's capacity to provide more student-centered ed tech use, including tools like Canvas. So I want to thank you all again for your continued support, and I will turn it over to my colleague and friend, Christy Johnson.
Just really quickly, Mike, I think the slides are slightly different. Before we transition, I just want to see if any of the committee members wanted to ask a question to Mike directly, or if we want to wait to the end of the presentations and just ask questions at the end. I want to get a feel for what people are interested in doing.
Well, first of all, you put cute kids on the screen and then you flip back to the other. So I was distracted by the adorable children. And it said kindergarten type rated programs. So now I'm just curious. It looks like you gave me a little commercial or something. I don't have a question, really just a comment that it's really exciting to see kind of this, our coaching staff and just how they work together, collaborate, and they're really out there finding all of the new ideas that we should be talking about within education. And that's just thrilling to see that in action. I brag all the time about our coaching in North Penn because it isn't something that you necessarily see around the county. You might see either 0 coaches in a district or maybe 1 or 2 if you're lucky, a math and a reading. It's great to see that we have enough coaches to really support our teachers in our schools. And so I'm really just complimenting you on your work and excited to hear more about it.
Great. Thank you so much. So we can put that really cool slide with the children back up. Marisa Neeson and Omni White are going to talk a little bit about kindergarten and the really fabulous work that's happened around early literacy this year. So thank you both for being here today.
Can I just say, Dr. Hart, that regarding the coaches, I was really impressed with all the celebrations in which they participated. And it's interesting that they are ahead of the game in dealing with AI for educators, which is and will be a hot item in the future. So I'm glad to see that they're already focused and working on that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, if there aren't any other comments or questions, I'm going to turn it over to Marisa and to Omni.
Thank you, Dr. Hart. Good evening, everyone. It's so nice to be back at ECI to see everyone, and I'm thrilled to be back with Omni. In my current role, I am lucky enough to support many things, but tonight, for the purposes of this meeting, we chose to just highlight the kindergarten think tank. I am also lucky enough to work with an absolutely amazing team, Omni White being one of those fabulous teachers in kindergarten. So together, we are just going to highlight our kindergarten think tank and tell you a little bit about it. So as you know, this is year 4 of our full day kindergarten program. And although it has been a little bit rocky with COVID, which is, you know, part of the reason for the think tank, we have many things that we're able to celebrate in kindergarten. So they are North Penn School District kindergartners that you see there. You see that wonderful hands-on learning. The kindergarten think tank is one thing that sort of came out of what we wanted to look at was going well in kindergarten, and what we wanted to look at, we could make adjustments to our program. So I heard someone ask about the titrated schedule. That is something new that we are going to be implementing next year, which we are very excited about. So as we welcome our incoming kindergartners to North Penn, we really want to be cognizant of meeting our learners exactly where they are and then helping them to grow. So still holding them to high expectations, but really being responsive to where they are. And with that, we really took a hard look at our schedule, and we are sort of going to put into place this titrated schedule that allows our students to build their learning stamina throughout the year. We have been lucky enough to add kindergarten assistants to many of our kindergarten classrooms this year, and we will be growing that amazing team next year. While having them, we've been able to provide professional development for them, and we do plan to continue that. Omni, I'm actually going to hand it over to you to talk a little bit about exploration stations and the additions we've been able to make in that.
Sure. So first and foremost, my name is Omni White. I am currently a kindergarten teacher at General Nash Elementary School for 3 years now. This is my first ECI meeting, so thank you guys for having me, and I'm definitely honored and excited to talk about what we've been talking about this entire year. So I sat on the kindergarten think tank committee, as well as a smaller committee, to come up with the titrated schedule that Marisa mentioned just a few minutes ago. And the biggest thing that came out of it, of course, is the titrated schedule, and just creating those 3 different schedules to allow teachers to welcome the incoming kindergartner and meeting them where they are, and then seeing the potential of their growth as we grow into the school year. And then we also implemented the integration of science and social studies within our exploration stations, which is an important part of our day. So with the integration of science and social studies, the kiddos will be using things from our current science kits in the exploration station. So it's giving them just that authentic play while also learning. to the best of their ability. It kind of takes the pressure and the stress off of the teachers as well, to be able to allow them to dibble and dab into what we already will be teaching them in the science and social studies curriculum.
Thanks, Omni. And then
Yeah.
just one more thing I'd like to highlight and then allow time for questions is our kindergarten orientation. So with the implementation of full day kindergarten, we created a really robust kindergarten orientation that allowed our students to come with family members the day before school started. With the importance of professional development and allowing our kindergarten teachers to really participate in those very, very important days, this year we are making an adjustment to our kindergarten orientation, both to meet the needs of our teachers and then also to titrate that schedule for our incoming kindergartners. So we are going to offer orientation in groups throughout that first day of school. So a kindergarten classroom will be broken into smaller groups. They will have the opportunity to come into their classroom with their family member in a smaller group, meet some peers, connect with the teacher, really start to begin to build those relationships and get comfortable with a kindergarten classroom, again, in an effort to really be responsive to their learning needs and start the year off on a right foot. We also continue to grow our responsive classroom approach in kindergarten, and we are looking forward to a fabulous 23-24 kindergarten year.
I just have a couple quick questions. I'm sorry, can you pull that back up? Can someone put the slide up? Thank you. So I wanted to know about the kindergarten orientation. Does each individual school also have a kindergarten orientation in the spring? And this is just more of like an open house opportunity for them to come in and meet their teacher? Is that the difference?
So we do not have anything in the spring that's orientation related. What we have in the spring is kindergarten registration, which is now done online. And then students are invited in to participate in a kindergarten activity portfolio. So that's actually has been happening throughout the spring and then throughout the summer. So it's sort of like a mini assessment looking at some kindergarten readiness skills. Then in the summertime, we offer a kindergarten information session that's geared towards families specifically, and that's information that is specifically kindergarten, things that will be true for all 13 buildings. So sort of like generic kindergarten information, if you will. So this kindergarten orientation is held at each building. And while it is uniform in that we have the same structure, it does allow the children to get information specific to their building. And also it is their first opportunity to interact with their actual teacher.
Okay, thank you. I was just wondering what the difference was. So the titrated schedule, I guess I'm wondering more specific information about that, like what that actually looks like. I heard Omni say that there are 3 different schedules.
Yeah, so what we tried to do
I guess
was,
the kindergarten.
oh, I'm sorry. What we tried to do was take into account the learning stamina of a kindergartner. So in the beginning of the year, we tried to allow more time for transition into a classroom. We tried to allow more time for the explicit teaching of classroom expectation, acclimating to the playground, walking in the hallway. We really kind of like adjusted our pacing guide. So allowing them to work up to the full extent of the minutes. Like Omni mentioned, we tried to really increase our play-based learning, which is something we started out pretty strong in when we first implemented our full day kindergarten program. And then with COVID protocols, sort of moved a little bit away from that. So we're going back to what we really feel will meet the developmental needs of incoming kindergartners, with the hope of decreasing some of the behaviors that we've seen and just really looking at the profile of a current incoming kindergartner.
So it's not that the teacher, if the teacher is going to manage 3 different schedules time-wise, it's more about what activities they're doing or what learning experiences they have during that time. Is that what I'm hearing?
So that's a great question, and it's actually a little bit of both. So they will have the identical master schedule, but sort of within those minutes, what we tried to do was allow a teacher the opportunity to build their learners up to the full extent of the minutes. So Omni is exactly right. We created a start of the school year schedule, and then we sort of made one for the middle of the year, and then one for the end of the year, really taking into account the learning stamina of a kindergartner. So both play-based experiences, learning it within the minutes, and then also sort of working up to the full minutes.
Okay.
The kindergartners will be in school the entire day still. It's just allowing time for them to acclimate to those academic, the rigor of the academic challenge.
Okay, Dr. McKenna, were you going to chime in? That was my question. If I'm a parent, I'm wondering, my day is still the same, right? Like that my child's still going to school from this time to this time. It's just that the teacher has some autonomy to look at their class and the learners in their classroom and make some decisions about how much time we should spend on social emotional skills and how much time we should spend on just say science for the first month or so of school. Dr. McKenna, were you going to chime in?
You just said it perfectly. That's pretty much it. We met a lot about this, and many of our experienced kindergarten teachers really take that time that they need and provide, as you mentioned, that autonomy to do what they need to do. But sometimes, as we know, teachers get a little stressed and feel like they need to keep pace with the academic rigor of kindergarten, as we know. So we really were very explicit for all of our kindergarten teachers to know, if you need to take that time to teach expectations more thoroughly, spend some more time reviewing procedures, routines, expectations. We really provided that a little more explicitly in the fall, kind of an ideal schedule for the fall, a winter and spring, and just laid it out. And of course, there's this flexibility within that for all of our teachers, but we just wanted to kind of lay that out and make sure our teachers knew to be flexible, to know your kids and spend that time building that community in the beginning of the year so that the rest of your year can be a very positive one.
So, Dr. McKenna, that's a perfect segue into talking about the integration of science and social studies. I do like the idea of the increase of play-based learning. Can someone give me a quick example of that integration of science and social studies for kindergartners?
I'll start, and Marisa, you could probably chime in. Through a lot of our morning meetings in kindergarten, whether they're community-based, especially that social studies ideas and themes and information is really, a lot of our kindergarten teachers can cover a lot of the social studies curriculum within their morning meetings when they talk about identity and their community and things like that. So we're also implementing a new ELA curriculum, which also has a lot of new science and social studies components within the ELA curriculum. So we're going to be exploring a little more integration in regards to our English language arts curriculum for next year as well. But naturally, if you talk to a lot of our kindergarten teachers, they naturally and authentically integrate science and social studies ideas into their morning meetings, into their exploration stations, and within their ELA and math curriculum on an everyday basis.
Okay, I just wanted an idea of what that is, how you integrate science and social studies like that with those young kids.
Dr. Lewis Campbell, was your question answered, or do you need more information?
Well, I just wanted an example of what it is that a teacher does to integrate science and social studies with kindergartners.
So
I'm
happy to keep.
I can imagine we can all give you about 4 different answers.
Just give me one example. Just
by kindergartners, but
okay, one of them give me one example.
So Omni, could you give a good example of something that you've done this year in a way that you've integrated science or social studies in your classroom?
Yeah, so I was just thinking for social studies, like Dr. McKenna said, that in our morning meeting, we have it structured 4 parts of the morning meeting. You have your greeting, your share, your activity, And I'm missing the last part, but within that, I may, for our share, pose a question of what's something you like to do with your family. So I know one of the social studies standards is being able to identify with others. Oh, sorry, being able to identify with others and being able to identify with others and maybe like their responsibilities. So talking about like maybe at home, you help mom with groceries and you help wash dishes, things like that. So we're getting that standard hit. And then as far as science, using, again, I think I said this earlier, but within the science kids, there's like balls and ramps. So implementing that in your exploration stations and seeing the kids roll the ball down or saying, oh no, this won't go because this is too flat. So just using those type of skills within that play base that we're already doing throughout the day.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, just really quickly, continued ISV. What are you referring to there?
Implementation support visits. Yeah. So that's like continuing to, that was one of my coaching goals, to continue to get into all the classrooms and support the implementation of Foundations and Geodes and Wit and Wisdom, our new ELA curriculum.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. What are we moving on, or was that the last slide?
We're going to move on to social emotional learning with Christy Johnson.
Hello, thank you. I'm Christy Johnson. I appreciate you inviting me here tonight to share some of the fabulous work that I've had the privilege to be part of over the past year. Marisa, who just spoke regarding kindergarten, actually supported me with the responsive classroom as well. Her and I really support the district together for the responsive classroom portion of our SEL. But some of the celebrations that I wanted to highlight in terms of SEL in general and what we've been able to accomplish is our responsive classroom summer sessions that we're looking into to continue to grow the professional development of our of all of our staff that specifically at the elementary level at this point. Also, and we were able to provide a lot of this training last summer as well, I should emphasize. Also, our responsive classroom school year kickoff PD. Marisa and I had a wonderful PD session and had amazing feedback from a lot of the elementary staff. We had I think it was over 125 staff members who were requesting additional professional development surrounding how they could better increase their own knowledge for utilizing the responsive classroom approach within their classrooms. Marisa and I also had the privilege of creating the first Work Together Wednesday of this year, where we were able to really bring in it was much more than just a review of responsive classroom, but really taking it beyond the theory and providing our teachers with the application. What is it specifically that they can do? We've been talking about responsive classroom. We've been giving them the PD, but really focusing more now on let's really refine that application of the responsive classroom approach. Marisa and I together have had the opportunity within our roles to really focus on the morning meeting. You heard both Omni and Marisa reference that in terms of kindergarten, but morning meeting is something that we have been able to implement across our elementaries. And I can just tell you from somebody who has their boots on the ground in these buildings, this is one thing that all of our teachers are tremendously grateful for, is the opportunity to have this morning meeting with their students. But the part that Marisa and I have really been able to focus on through the PD is giving them the structured format of how to run that morning meeting so that we are utilizing that responsive approach, as well as setting up their classrooms with a positive culture. And then really the support that the district has provided us in continuing to educate us in terms of the responsive classroom approach and provide us with that opportunity to do the amount of turnaround trainings that we have done within the district. Also, as an SEL celebration, I cannot stress enough the fact that we made it through year 3 of second step implementation. I am so proud of where we are coming in this district in terms of second step implementation. All of our K-6 classrooms are, in fact, working through the second step curriculum. And I will say again, this is something that I hear often, that teachers truly enjoy the opportunity to embed these lessons within their day. And also the students really enjoy them as well. I would say a huge celebration is the teacher buy-in. We, again, emphasizing how much the teachers have supported this, I think it is important to just emphasize that that is truly one of the great factors that are contributing to the success of this. I've also been working with my secondary counterpart, Trish Pike, on identifying a secondary SEL curriculum, which we are working on for proposal. We've had the opportunity to collaborate and do observations at Abington regarding Rethink Ed, working with the various we're now working with various grant facilitators, and I'm sure we will be back soon to give you more information regarding that. But that is a huge celebration that we're definitely coming into the home stretch of being able to come to that for proposal. Our data that supports this, we have been utilizing the DESA Mini as part of second step. There is a link here that will link you to the DESA Mini information from not this past school year, the year before. Any over the course of the summers when we will actually get the updated data report from our grant facilitators who utilize Devereaux, and I would be happy to share that information with you as well. And our plans for next year, we're actually going to be working with the county and our grant facilitators to start our second step fidelity checks. I am confident that our teachers are ready for this, and I am feeling very confident that we will be able to show great things. We also, the plans are once we are able to finalize this secondary curriculum, to hopefully have SEL begin at least at that 7th and 8th grade as an initial pilot, with obviously intentions to continue to grow that SEL. Additionally, we're working on structured SEL for staff. So both myself and Trish Pike are working on utilizing the Compassion Resilience Toolkit and modifying some of these specific lessons so that we can embed the structured SEL curriculum for staff within our already existing staff meetings and things such as that, where we're going to actually develop these small activities and tools or lessons, that the SCCs and principals will be able to utilize directly within their classrooms to help promote that positive culture within their buildings, to help promote that positive culture within each of those buildings. Next slide, please. I just have one more. Also within SEL, of course, our PBIS goes. I am very grateful that I get to serve as the PBIS district coach for the past 5 or 6 years. Major celebration where everybody should be throwing confetti in the air right now. We have all 13 elementary buildings that have actually signed on and have gone through the network. York was our last elementary building that went through consortium this year, so they will actually be working on their kickoff for next year. So I literally have goosebumps right now as I just say that. That's how excited I get over PBIS. Very exciting that PBIS is in all 13 elementaries, and we are working with our 3 middle schools that will be joining the network next year as well. So our 3 middle schools will also be coming to, we'll be going through the consortium process, and we will be able to get them in network and slowly but surely work our way up with PBIS through the district. We also, another celebration I'd like to highlight is Marisa and I had the great honor of presenting at the Pennsylvania State Conference for PBIS, where we actually presented about along with Kate Small, I should say, I'm sorry, in terms of the integration of PBIS with the responsive classroom approach. Additionally, we have really taken a strong focus within each of our buildings of taking PBIS to focus on intrinsic or experience rewards. We're trying to really minimize or eliminate those extrinsic reinforcers as much as possible, the little trinkets, the gadgets, but really focusing on celebrations that can help to promote that positive climate within each of our buildings. Another celebration is, now that we've made it through COVID, really the ability this year to return to those whole school celebrations was definitely a celebration for each individual building, I can say as well. And I think we're really starting to see as well the consistency in the language and expectations. You walk into a building and I can tell you individually what their B statements are, and that is not because I am necessarily on the PBIS team, but we are starting to hear a lot more consistency in language, even as you're walking through the halls of buildings and hearing just what those expectations are. For data purposes, we have started to use our ODRs at all of our buildings. We're utilizing the Swiss suite at 10 of our buildings, and that will continue to increase, as well as we have specified data teams that are subcommittees within each of our PBIS core teams in each building that have received additional training, and I support on an ongoing basis to really help them in drilling down that data and understanding what that data means from these various ODRs or behavior referrals, so that we're looking at those universal, the universal structure. We're looking at the universal, not necessarily individual specific behavior of students, but really just looking at the universal level and what we can do to help support those buildings. So next year with PBIS, our goals continue to really develop in obviously bringing on those 3 middle schools, as I said, exploring the idea of utilizing direct entry for our Swiss to help kind of minimize some of that paperwork. Explore high school readiness is ultimately our goal, is eventually to get there as well. And then also revisit the SEL Universal Screener for Tier 2. We did pilot this just prior to the pandemic. We utilized the SSRSIE at at Oak Park Elementary, but it is designed and intended for those buildings that are at Tier 2. So we are going to revisit the idea of how we can utilize that SEL Universal Screener. Thank you.
Christy, thank you. And I know that you and Marisa collaborated quite a bit this year on social emotional learning through responsive classroom and morning meeting, and then your work in PBIS. And we just want to see if there's any questions or comments from any of the committee members.
Certainly kudos to your team for the support that you're giving all of the schools with PBIS, and to hear that it's in all 13 of our elementary schools. I mean, that's huge, even to get there. I feel like it just was a minute ago that we were only in like 3. So that's great. And I also am really excited to see that there is more of a responsive classroom approach to PBIS, and that we're kind of shifting away from the extrinsic rewards. I think that's really important. The universal screener, I'm sure you've read the research on a universal screener. So, I mean, there's good, and then there's parts of it that we have to be cautious and careful with. So I am curious, if you utilize a universal screener, what your plan is in terms of what you plan to do with that data. Is it to work at a tier 1 level? So is it to look at the data and say, okay, well, it looks like in our school, 2nd grade is having some difficulty, and it seems to be with playing together at recess. And so what can we do to help teach them the skills that they need to help support them in being able to resolve conflicts? Is it that level, as opposed to the individual student level, which you want to be careful with over screening students and identifying behaviors which don't seem like they're part of the norm, but they're the norm for that student?
Yes, so that's a great question, and you absolutely. The goal, when I share the revisit SEL Universal Screener, please know there is no, as of this moment, there is no plan or intention of actually rolling this out at this time. We would like to revisit the idea of that. So as part of PBIS within the network, they encourage the use of Universal Screener once you are a meeting tier, once you are at tier 2. So we have, I'd have to go back right now. I'm getting it all jumbled because all our buildings are coming in with Fidelity for this year. But we have several buildings that are going to be potential candidates to utilize that for next year. What we would ultimately use that for is what you were saying in terms of looking at this more as a systems level issue, not necessarily individual students, not looking this as one student is having this level of concern, but just as what it was designed for, specifically the RSIE, if that were potentially to be something that we were going to be looking at, just as one example, is one that we would be looking at overall. Is there a particular grade level where we are seeing a pattern of certain needs or behaviors, and what supports can we put in place to help overall in, or maybe a particular buildings or particular grade levels, but not necessarily drilling down to the individual student.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Great work.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments from committee members? All right, great. We do have, I've really appreciated everyone's patience. I love like all the work that the coaches have done. And we have math, we have Mike, we have Ron and Rebecca who've been waiting patiently to talk a little bit about math. And I want to give them the opportunity to do that because they've done an incredible amount of work this year. Math has been an area of needed growth for our district for quite some time. And there's definitely been some wonderful things that have happened this year. And I just would love to give them an opportunity to highlight that as well. So Ron and Rebecca, thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Ron Martiello, and I am one of the elementary math coaches. I serve alongside Mrs. Lynn Heil and Mrs. Ainsley Faye Merkel as an elementary coach. And I'm joined by my friend Rebecca Russo. Rebecca.
Hello, good evening. I also work as a team with Mrs. Melinda Lyon for the secondary math group.
So tonight we want to take you through some of the work that we've done as a team. Although we do have an elementary team and a secondary team, our work is very much aligned, and we take pride in building a coherent program between both sets of coaches. And it starts with staying aligned with the school district's goals. We want to make sure that we're providing that student-centered instruction so that our students have a voice and are able to participate in math communities around the district. We want to use data to inform our instruction, and we have some very rich data thanks to the software that we have through iData, Alex, the STAR assessment. And so we make sure that we put that data into action. We also want to make sure that we're balancing whole group and small group instruction. When is that right time to build that math community and that whole group instruction while taking time to differentiate in those small groups? And then also, how do we differentiate using the plethora of resources that these programs through iReady and through Reveal have for our students and teachers to utilize? Rebecca?
Yep, you can go to the next slide, please, Mary.
So here we are, we have, talking a little bit about school district and the STAR assessment. And so we have our STAR assessment at the elementary grade levels. We did a presentation for all the principals in the school district, K to 12, to work on data literacy with this assessment. We do have more work to do as we work with principals and other administrators to, help them to build their capacity to read these things. The Middle school, we have continued support for curriculum implementation, including walkthrough information, Elementary schools, we have the continued support of the curriculum through implementation of walkthroughs. So we had our friends from Curriculum Associates who support the iReady program. They did walkthroughs through most of our elementary schools, and they were able to give us a lot of information about some things that are happening in classroom that we can support teachers with. In secondary, we're supporting best practices to support student engagement. And so our secondary coaches are helping to support that. In elementary, we have some great celebrations. At the elementary team has had 372 coaching sessions with individual teachers. Our time with teachers can be a little limiting as far as like what's on the professional development calendar. So we try to do our best to do our in-class, on-the-job type of training. So we do that through those individual coaching sessions. We do it through data meetings with data teams and principals, so we can take a look at the data and again, put that data into action. We also work through PLCs. We conducted 15 PLCs within the elementary schools to provide support and training during that 8:30 to 9 o'clock time or so for most of the schools, so we could help them with certain strategies and techniques. We also had end of year visits for some of the schools, and all in all, the elementary coaching team, we hit the pavement. We made sure that we were out there in schools, and we had a total of 496 coaching sessions with teachers. We were able to service 84 teachers this year, which is about a third to a quarter of the teachers that we service. We've had almost 3 coaching sessions per day in the 177 days of school that we measured. And each teacher is taking that we work with is taking an average of 4 coaching sessions, meaning we're not in there once, we're in there a couple times, making sure that we start a planning meeting, we talk about the work with students, and then we follow up with that teacher. And then also we've had principal planning meetings. We want to make sure that our principals are on board and making sure that we're working closely with them.
And at the middle school and high school level, we've really been working on supporting the district's goals, not only around authentic assessment at the high school level, but around student-centered instruction. We've had year 1 implementation for 7th and 8th grade. We've also undergone curriculum review for Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. And we're really looking at, not only our K-12 alignment, but looking at those specific bridge spots between 6th and 7th grade, and looking at from our middle school to high school, along with our Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. Our work at the department level at secondary is really about working with NPLCs, department meetings, in-class supports, and really making sure that we are providing our teachers with the support they need, as well as our students within their classes. So Mary, you can go to the next slide, please. And as a K-12 team, we really work to be cohesive in our vision, in our ways that we are doing coaching. We have had the pleasure of being able to learn from outside the district with the NCTM and with the NCIU. We've attended sessions at a conference and at monthly meetings, and then bringing that learning back to our teachers and to our professional development sessions that we're offering. Along with that, we are looking at how we're applying the UDL approach. We've attended trainings with the IU and then bringing that into some of our buildings, and then continuing to build our coaching partnerships, not just within our math team, but within our other content coaching teams. We really, as a coaching group, strive to work together to continue that shared vision and continue to lift the district into, bigger and better things. Mary, you can go ahead to the last slide.
So as we look ahead to overcoming, the barriers of time and sometimes mindset, because math isn't like the way we grew up. When we grew up, it was very traditional. We had to sit in our seats, we had to be quiet. And now we're asking students to talk openly about their thinking when it comes to math. So we want to make sure that our teachers are have a part in changing that mindset. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to address 3 top teacher actions. 1, we want teachers to be able to conduct meaningful discourse with their students so that all students have a voice and can show the different ways that they can solve math. We want them to have purposeful questioning techniques. We want them to be able to go into a lesson and be able to pose those questions, not just what's the right answer, but those questions that advance thinking and make sure that students are thinking and reasoning to get to that solution. And then finally, we want teachers to be comfortable with productive struggle in their classroom. It's okay for our kids to struggle a little bit. That's how they get stronger, their math muscles build. So we want to make sure they're comfortable with those top teacher actions. In order to facilitate that process, we're going to continue to partner with our principals, making sure that they are with us as they continue the conversation when we're not there, and through staff meetings and other work that they're going to be doing as they also take their part in working to help teachers with math instruction. And then we're going to continue to align with district initiatives. We want to make sure that our work is in tandem with social emotional learning, with equity, with universal design. And we really do feel as though that the work that we're doing right now with the help of the iReady program and the Reveal program really helps us to align to those bigger goals, and will continue to put us on the right path to student improvement and student achievement.
All right, if there are any questions, if not, Dr. Hart, we will pass it back to you to finish out that Learning Coach slide.
Anything from the committee? I don't have any questions, just continued great work from the team. And I like the idea of the top teacher actions and kind of focusing on kind of 3 things. I think as educators, there's so much out there and there's so much constantly being thrown at you that you're kind of like, what do I focus on? Like you're just, and so I like the idea of kind of identifying those top teacher actions that we believe are really important and replicating them across the district. So, we're not just trying to do everything and focusing for our teachers on what the most important things that we need to do.
I'll second that, Dr. G.
Yes, thank you for your great work.
Great. We just have one quick slide just to kind of wrap it up. And just really as next steps, the goal of really continuing to develop targeted and data-driven goals. I think that's one of our goals this year, and I think the team has done an amazing job. You saw throughout the slides, continuing the collaboration among and between the learning coaches. It's already lots and lots of collaboration. We want to even get better at that, and strengthening our partnership with building principals. We've taken some steps to do that, but it's definitely a goal that we have collectively as a curriculum team, and you can see that in the coaches' feedback as well. And then ongoing communication toward of the progress toward our goals. So we've shared a lot of information, and I know that it's June, and I'd love to be able to have opportunities as we're kind of moving through the year next year to be able to highlight, what's happening throughout the year so that all of you have a really good sense of the really great work that is taking place. We have an amazing coaching team, and I've just been really fortunate to be able to work with them, and so really delighted to have an opportunity to be able to showcase some of the work that they've been engaged in this year. So I just want to say thank you for this opportunity to let them share their great work.
Okay, thank you to our coaching team. We will release you from Zoom so that you do not have to stay on with us. While we know that you've been working all day and we really appreciate your time.
So Dr. G, next up is the student rep report, but we did not approve the minutes earlier in the meeting just because of the numbers. So.
Okay, so let's just start with a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, minutes approved. So we have some new student reps. Before we move to our new student reps, I did want to congratulate, because I wasn't able to be on the call, your Adonis. How you always represent ECI. We totally take credit for you. I'm sure your mom does too. But we totally take credit for how amazing you are. And we're just so proud of you, and we're just excited to see what that action research looks like as we move throughout the year. Would love to see you come back and present that to us, because it's a pretty big deal. Just want to honor you as our student rep. It's awesome to see you doing great things. Jordanis, you're staying on with ECI, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm staying on.
Okay, I'm just making sure. I'm not going to let anybody take it away from me now.
And yes, I'll up with you guys on the project that I'm doing with Bezos.
Great. We are very excited to hear about that. And so I'm going to ask each of our other student reps if you would unmute and introduce yourself. Since this is my first time meeting with you, I want to make sure I know how to pronounce your names. And so we're excited. If you would tell us what grade you're in as well at North Penn, that would be wonderful.
Hi, my name is Haruka Weir. I'm in 10th, well, I was in 10th grade, so I'm a rising junior. And is there anything else you would like to know about?
That's all. There's no quiz here, Haruka. You passed. Great job. We'll come back to you for the student report. Haley?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Haley Swider, and I'm also a rising junior.
Okay, fantastic. So we'll move on to our student rep report. I'll ask Jordanis to get us started, and then Haruka, and then Haley, if you have anything to add, please feel free to jump in.
I don't have anything to report today, but I want to congratulate everyone that presented today. And I think Mr. Gross left, but I couldn't, he wasn't here when I could say thank you, but if he's watching still, thank you, Mr. Gross.
Haruka or Haley, do you have anything to report? Or you can also ask questions if there's a question that you had about something that you saw, or a comment that you had about something you saw, you're welcome to do that as well.
So I did have a question about the authentic assessments. I was just wondering, like, because I kind of understand what like an English-based or a social studies-based authentic assessment would look like, but what would that kind of look like in a math course? If there's any examples?
Dr. Hart, could you jump in there?
Yep, I'm going to jump in right now. I wasn't sure if Mr. Nicholson wanted to jump in, so I was pausing for a hot second. So it's actually a great question. So if you're thinking about a particular concept that you are learning, I'm going blank on the moment. I'll have the just right concept as soon as I get off our meet. But the idea of taking that concept and solving a problem, working on a project, using those skills and concepts to be able to do something with it, as opposed to just kind of answering questions on a test. So if I think Mr. Nicholson actually shared the idea of, geometry, the idea of using those skills to like build something or kind of create something, not just kind of taking the formulas and just kind of putting them down and going, okay, I've memorized this formula, I can answer these questions, but really, why do you learn these skills and concepts, and how are you able to use them in real life? And that's really what the intent is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Yeah.
I also had a question about the authentic assessment. So would there be like authentic assessments and AP courses provided at North Penn?
And Mr. Nicholson, could you jump in on that one?
Yeah,
absolutely. The answer to that would be that is absolutely the goal. That when we say each course, we mean each and every course. So one in each semester. I know some of our AP courses already do some of this and some of the application after the AP exam, and applying some of the information there. But yes, absolutely. When we say every course, we mean every course.
Okay, anything else from our student reps? If not, then we will, great. Great news, ECI takes off in July to our student reps, so you can go to the beach, you get to be off. And so we hope that you have a wonderful July and beginning of the summer. What's next on our agenda? I think we're going to be moving on to public comment.
Dr. G, one before that, we actually have student travel, and for student travel, and Mr. Nicholson will jump in if I don't capture this correctly, but our FBLA, the Future Business Leaders of America, qualified for a national competition. So they'll be going to nationals, and we just kind of have that on there, I guess, as an action item.
And where is nationals and how many students?
That's a very.
I can jump in. We're looking for 5 students and 1 FBLA advisor to attend in Atlanta, Georgia. It's June 26th till July 1st.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Nicholson. That was hot off the press for me, so I appreciate you taking that one.
All right. I would imagine that needs to be moved forward to action. Is that
Yes,
correct?
please.
So, can I have a motion to approve student travel for FBLA students to travel to nationals in Atlanta?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 And off to Atlanta, FBLA goes.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you, Dr. Waters, since I couldn't get my agenda.
Sure. Yeah. So if there's no other business, we don't have any other business, then yep, you're ready for public comment.
Okay. Is there anyone on for public comment?
Yes, there is.
Okay. Can you set the timer up so that they know?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Lanier, when I unmute, please state your name and unmute your mic. Do you have to say a statement or anything? Do you have to say any kind of statement or anything?
Let me read the statement. I'm so sorry. Thank you, Doctor. One moment. I got out of my agenda, or I just lost it. Mr. McBain, do you have it up? Can you read it?
I will bring it up and get it done here real quick.
I'm sorry.
All good. Technical difficulties this evening. I don't think it's North Penn. I think it's somebody else.
Have it up if you want me to read. I have it up.
I'm all set.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. McBain. You got it.
Individuals attending this meeting virtually and intending to speak to the committee should be aware that they are being recorded. In order to meet the requirements of Pennsylvania's Sunshine Law, it is necessary to record the names of all citizens who speak to the committee during the meeting. To assure compliance with this requirement, it is essential that those planning to address the committee raise their hand electronically and state their name and municipality. Members of the audience are asked to limit their questions and comments to matters being discussed at tonight's meeting or matters that may come before the ECI committee. To allow time for all those who wish to speak to the committee, the chairperson may ask an individual to yield the microphone to the next speaker.
Okay, so Mr. Lanier, I'm going to unmute your mic and then you may begin.
Jason Lanier, Lansdale. Had a question regarding authentic assessment, and it's a similar question as I did ask about equity and SEL. Is there evidence that this is actually beneficial to students, or is this a practice of doing things so that it seems like something's done to help to benefit or make up the losses that kids have been having? Or I just don't understand. I mean, I get sort of what the stated goal is, but I'm wondering, is there any actual evidence that shows a betterment from doing these sorts of things? Are kids more prepared once they have done any of these authentic assessments or SEL or equity or any of these things? Does this make them better prepared to go out in the real world when they graduate after 12th grade? I look at this and there's always something going on that is new and different than it was the year prior, but education seems to be sort of stagnating or going down in terms of the proficiency and the ability for kids to their mastery of skill sets. And I'm not talking about being able to graduate, because if the standards are lowered from the state, then of course more kids will graduate, or the same amount of kids will graduate. But our kids, is it at the detriment to the student? Meaning, are we the sort of the tough love of trying to, you have to learn something, you have to put work in, not because the teacher says it, it's because it benefits the student to know how to do it. And I think, I don't remember who mentioned it, but the struggle of actually learning something is beneficial in the long run. And if it's all about checking a box to saying that it's been done, and this is, we don't have to worry about how well they can actually do math or read, or their history is all goofy, but they have lots of social emotional learning involved with it, so they'll be just fine in the real world. They authentically assess that they know what they're talking about. Is that really the case? And so if any of them can point to where this has been applied and has been successful, and kids are really doing well, they're going on to higher education, they're banging it out real well in the real world or in the job market. Can you point to me where this has been implemented and it really works and it shows to be beneficial? That's what I'm asking. I've asked this about a bunch of things. Nobody seems to be able to answer. So I'd appreciate it if somebody could actually point to a situation where this has benefited students. Thank you.
Hey, is there anyone else for public comment?
There is not.
Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. And the
Aye.
meeting is adjourned. I hope that everyone has a wonderful evening. Thank you.